Thank you for joining us. I'm your host Molly, and for this episode I'd like to welcome Eithne Hughes. Eithne has over 27 years of experience in senior leadership in schools, including 11 years as a head teacher. For several years, Eithne had been an advisor to the Welsh Government on initial teacher education, teacher recruitment and retention, and was influential in the development of the self-improving school systems at national policy level. She brings with her a wealth of experience from across the education sector, having been a long-serving head teacher of a large secondary school in North Wales, and is the current director of the Association of School and College Leaders Cymru. Eithne is also the chair of the Education Workforce Council. She is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and is an invited member of the Oxford All Souls Group. Alongside her vast experience, Eithne is the recipient of several prestigious awards, including an honorary professorship with Bangor University, the Teaching Award for Leadership for Wales, the Pearson Award for Leadership, and the Cymru Professional Award for promoting school collaboration. In 2013, she was awarded an OBE for services to secondary education in Wales. Thank you so much for joining us. So to begin, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you some quick fire questions, just so our listeners can know you a bit better.
Lovely.
What was the last book that you read?
Malcolm Gladwell, David and Goliath.
And would you recommend it?
I will be talking about that in the next session. I would highly recommend it. Beautiful book, absolutely inspirational.
That'll go to the top of my to-read list now. What was the last thing that you learnt?
Italian this morning. So on Duolingo, which I guess most people have a crack at. So yes, I was looking to do a little bit more vocabulary this morning and a little bit more understanding of some of those reflexive verbs. So yes.
What made you pick Italian to learn?
My sister lives in Italy and my brother-in-law is Italian. And when I was in Italy last year, I looked at a sign and the sign said Li Ragazzi. And I thought, well, I think I know what ragazzi means, but what's Li, which is spelled G-L-I? And my sister turned to me with a very withering look as a linguist, and she said, Eithne, it means the. And I was so ashamed. I thought, I need to do something here to try and make this a bit better. Yeah.
What is your greatest strength?
My greatest strength, I think, are my people skills. So it sounds like a bit of an interview question, and then I think as women we try and duck it and turn it into something else. So I'm not going to duck it. I'm going to say my people skills. And I think the other one that I would put alongside that is I am a really, really hard worker. If I don't know something, I make it my business to know it as best I possibly can. So yeah.
Kind of hand in hand with that, what motivates you?
I think having and again, it sounds really cheesy, but knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing gives me a sense of purpose. So I've been in education all my life. Kids, I absolutely love the whole business of trying to switch kids onto learning and then switching teachers onto switching kids onto learning, and on it goes. So I think that sense of purpose is what motivates me to push myself really hard. That's it.
And you said you'd been in education your whole time, but what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would like to be, and again, probably fairly ordinary, I'd expect. I'd love to be an artist. I couldn't draw a frog if you asked me to. And failing that, which I would fail at miserably, probably an actress or something of that sort, which would be really, really interesting and exciting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering those. It's interesting just to know more about you. I do have a few more, but I'll come back to them at the end, if that's okay. Sure. So being a leader isn't just about leading, it's about helping other people grow. So today's episode is about nurturing leadership. So what does nurturing leadership mean to you, and why is it important in today's world?
I think what it means, I mean, you could take the title to mean two things. It's either nurturing others into leadership or being a nurturing leader yourself, where you have to also look after yourself. So I'm going to take it to be the former rather than necessarily the latter. So for me, it's about the whole business of nurturing leadership has to be about the fact that no one person can do any job on their own if they're in a leadership capacity. And what they have to do is make sure they are building teams around them, teams away from them, that they don't try and organise some echo chamber of debate and discussion that means that all you do is hear what you want to hear, and you end up in a real pickle because you haven't got those voices coming from the sidelines, or indeed from your own people, that really, really will help you improve. So for me, it's about talent spotting, it's about risk taking, it's about believing in people and going to a trust model rather than a deficit model as your first go-to place when you're working with people and building teams around you.
Can you share any examples of organisations or leaders who excel in nurturing leadership, and what lessons can we learn from them?
I worked until yesterday with our General Secretary, because I'm the Director for the Association of School and College Leaders. So our General Secretary was Jeff Barton. We've got a new General Secretary now who'll be absolutely amazing. But Jeff, I would say, is an absolutely standout leader in everything that he does. And I have learned so much from his style of leadership. He gives autonomy, but he also will do a light touch check. So it's not autonomy with him absolutely devolving all responsibility, because that's absolutely hopeless. You're not paid to devolve responsibility. You're paid to be responsible, but also to try and make sure that you're giving people enough space to develop themselves. And he does that every single time. And one of the things that he did when we worked shoulder to shoulder with him, we would go into a cafe or we'd go to a restaurant or wherever, he never ignored the waiter or the waitress or the person standing at the door or the cook who would come out to check if everything was okay. He knew their name, he knew where they came from, he asked them to take a photograph of us that would go on Twitter or wherever, and he gave absolutely every single human being that came across his path time and space and respect. He didn't have the hierarchy. And you learn a lot from that, because I think it's easy, it could be easy to ignore people that you don't feel you would want to take into your notice. But I can't remember I think it might have been somebody like Nelson Mandela said, the test of true leadership is how you treat people that you don't need. And Jeff embodies that. Time for absolutely everybody. And that makes people flourish and grow and become confident. And it's not a patronising thing. It's just to say, I recognise your worth. I recognise what you're doing. And
the acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Nurturing leadership has been described as fostering growth and achievement in others. You've given us like kind of one idea, but what specific strategies or initiatives can leaders implement to nurture leadership qualities in their teams or their employees?
I think it can be piecemeal, but I think it should be strategic. I think there needs to be an absolutely definite strategy around making sure that you are building people's professionalism, you are allowing people to grow, that there's a transparency in the system for that growth, that professional learning and professional development isn't done to as a one-off moment of something. And God knows all of us love the business of performance management, not. It rarely does anything other than tick a box somewhere along the way. But it's that day-to-day work with people, but you have a strategy. You say, this is the organisation, whatever it is you're working in. This is the culture I wish to grow. And I want to grow a culture where people are valued, not just feel valued, because feeling and being are different things, actually are valued. And I'm going to invest in these people. And if I see somebody who I think I think they've got something about them, is to give them space to grow, not give them so much that they'll fail, but also to make it really clear that if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. Just give it a go, and give people that stretch and that confidence to just take something on, to try and move them into a space that they may not feel comfortable doing until you've said, what about trying this? But that has to be a deliberate strategy, and it can't be done in grace and favour, because if that's done because somebody thinks, oh, this is the favourite, that can unravel really quickly.
Yeah.
Really, really, really quickly. So it's got to be done as a strategy, and it all needs to lead to what the purpose of the organisation is. If the purpose is about developing children in education, if it's about supporting members in a trade union, whatever that is, you don't take your eye off that one. So I wouldn't be developing somebody in an education setting for them to go abseiling on their own, or to try and develop their macrame skills, because if it doesn't come back into my educational setting, what am I doing it for?
Yeah.
You keep the focus on the why of the organisation and build people around that strategically and very deliberately.
You mentioned about development not being just like a tick box exercise. So what role does continuous learning and development play in nurturing leadership within an organisation?
The thing is, if it's a one-off event, it can be a one-off event that just gives people a little nugget of information that they try and develop and grow. But it has to be continuous, and I like to call it continuous professional learning, which then should lead to development if it's done well. Giving people time to reflect, giving people time to self-evaluate, giving people space to think, that was really good, I'm wondering how that could be better, or what do I need to do to really shore up that knowledge in order that I can do something else. And I think the other thing about it is this: it's not just about institutional knowledge. Professional learning isn't just about, I need to know X, Y, and Z in order to be this person or this leader or whatever. It's also about the soft skills that have to be developed in people that are day to day, that you also need to model with people. If you walk past with your nose in the air, a member of staff or a child or a member of your trade union or whatever circle you walk in, and you walk past that person, are you modelling the soft skills that you're actually trying to develop in people? Because I think employers more and more and more want those people who can make good eye contact, want people who can pick up on verbal and non-verbal cues, want people who have got the emotional intelligence to try and connect to somebody, rather than somebody who can just say, I've learned Italian.
Yeah.
It's how do you actually use the language that you're learning of knowledge in a space that is about communicating with other people, and you model it day after day after day after day, even when it's the last thing you feel like doing.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about how acknowledging and encouraging others and achievements can play a part in it. How can leaders effectively provide coaching feedback to support the growth and the development of their team?
Yeah, I think if there are teams that are set up, so you're not expected to do all of this, because no one person can do all of this stuff, but you're setting up that, I think Alma Harris would call it the distributed leadership model, where you have got horizontal working groups where there's feedback, there's coaching, there are discussions, there's modelling of behaviours, and so on and so forth. And some of the coaching techniques that certainly I've used on occasion would be the business of mirroring, where someone is saying such and such, and instead of going straight to the answer, you mirror their response in order that you can tease further commentary through. But I think that coaching and mentoring, again, people can get into a muddle over it if it isn't actually properly taught. How do you coach? What's the difference between coaching and mentoring? And what effect would you like to see as a consequence of the input? I don't think you can just throw people at it and hope that it's all going to be okay, because sometimes it could actually cause more damage than good if you've got the wrong person connected to the wrong person. It's you've got to make sure you're matching people up correctly, and that you have got training in place so that you don't undermine somebody's confidence, or you don't make somebody so upset about what's been said that they end up just not wanting to be with that person anymore. So I think there are a lot of strands to that question. I probably haven't answered it very well because it's such a big question. It's enormous. It's absolutely an enormous question. But I think it boils down to the right people with the right people. You have to put the training in. You can't just say, could you coach such and such? Because what works for one doesn't always work for another. And also that business of knowing when to coach and when to mentor.
Just my last question. Do you have any advice for future leaders?
I think the advice I would have is that imperfect leadership is okay. And there's a lovely book on imperfect leadership, but the business of imperfect leadership's okay. But don't settle for doing your best, because if you do your best, what you're doing, you have to really push hard, work hard. But if you get it wrong, don't beat yourself up about it to the point where you think, I'm absolutely rubbish and I can't do this anymore. Just get up and get on with it. Learn from the bits you got wrong and just crack on.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice. So thank you for all the ideas and advice. Before we end, I'll go back to a few more quick-fire questions.
Sure.
Do you or have you ever played a musical instrument?
Yes, the piano, which I play badly now because because I gave it up, and I twiddle around now, but I don't do it very well. I can't say I was very good at it.
Wow. What is your favourite type of food?
Oh, no. I love cooking, so that's one of my hobbies, and I would say, are you looking at a nationality?
You can go
food?
broad with a nationality, or if there's something particularly you feel strong about.
I would say Lebanese food. Yeah.
And do you cook a lot of Lebanese then?
I do. I cook a lot of that kind of food. I love that kind of thing.
I'll have to get some tips. What is your favourite noise?
My favourite noise are the birds.
Oh, that's nice. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, a night owl, yes.
Have you always been a night owl?
Always been a night owl, yeah. My Italian was been done this morning at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Maybe you're an early bird then, if
I
you
could
think about it differently.
On the cusp there, yeah.
And lastly, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, it would be telekinesis.
Oh, that's a good one.
Telekinesis, definitely.
That covers a lot of...
Oh, yeah. That would get me a long way.
That's a really good choice. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, smashing, thank you. I hope it was okay.
Mae'n podlediad Sgwrsiau ar Arweinyddiaeth ar gael trwy ein gwefan. Mae'r hawlfraint y podlediad yma yn cael ei gadw gan Llywodraeth Cymru. Our Conversations on Leadership podcast is available through our website. Copyright of this podcast is held by the Welsh Government.